You've been manipulated by those closest to you, often disguised as care, support, or love, quietly shaping your choices and beliefs without you ever noticing. Imagine believing you're free, only to realize your life's decisions were never truly your own, but carefully steered by others for their benefit. Manipulation hides behind affection, advice, and love, making you feel helped, while quietly eroding your independence. One day, you see the truth. The life you thought you built was shaped by invisible hands, and your freedom was only an illusion. As you look back, every memory and relationship reveals its hidden motives, and you finally see the cage you mistook for comfort. As the pieces fell into place, a devastating realization settled upon him. He had not been living his own life. He was a character performing in a narrative that was not his own creation, speaking lines he did not write. His life was a story, but someone else was the author. Every major plot point, his career, his relationships, even his personal aspirations, had been subtly guided by the needs and desires of others. He was playing a role that had been assigned to him, the dependable employee, the devoted partner, the loyal friend. His purpose, it seemed, was to fulfill a function that made everyone else's story run smoothly. He saw that his own dreams had been systematically dismissed as impractical or selfish. The desire he once had to travel the world was gently reframed as irresponsible. His passion for painting was treated as a charming but unrealistic hobby. Each time he expressed a desire that deviated from the unwritten script, he was met with a chorus of concern, gentle disapproval, or loving persuasion. Over time, he learned to silence his own inner voice. He started to believe their version of reality. He convinced himself that what they wanted for him was what he truly wanted for himself. He had become a stranger to his own heart. The flashes of his life played out in his mind, but now he saw the audience he had always been performing for. He saw his boss nodding in approval when he took on extra work without complaint. He saw his partner smiling when he canceled his plans to stay home with her. He saw his friends cheering when he chose the safe, predictable path that kept him close. He had been so focused on earning their applause that he never stopped to ask if he was happy in the role he was playing. The validation he received was a powerful drug, and he had been addicted to it for years without even knowing. He looked in the mirror again, and this time, he saw the exhaustion that came from a lifetime of performance. He was tired of walking on eggshells, of constantly weighing his words, of trying to anticipate the needs of others before his own. The man who thought he was free was in fact the most constrained person of all, bound by invisible chains of obligation, guilt, and the desperate need for approval. He realized that the greatest manipulation had not been the control exerted by others, but his own participation in the act. He had willingly surrendered his own agency for the illusion of love and acceptance. The awakening was complete. Manipulation is a master of disguise. It rarely shows its true face. It does not look like the overt, aggressive control we see in movies. It does not announce its presence with loud commands or visible chains. Instead, manipulation wears the most convincing and disarming costumes. It wraps itself in the warmth of affection, the comfort of support, and the wisdom of guidance. It is an art form that preys on our deepest needs, the need to be loved, the need to be understood, and the need to feel safe. Its power lies in its subtlety, its ability to feel like a gift when it is, in reality, a carefully laid trap, a velvet glove hiding an iron fist. When you are being manipulated, you don't feel like you are being forced into anything. On the contrary, you often feel like you are being helped. Manipulation looks like care. It is the friend who insists you shouldn't apply for that job in another city because they would miss you too much. framing their own neediness as deep affection for you. It is the parent who constantly reminds you of all the sacrifices they made, ensuring you feel a perpetual debt that influences your major life decisions. This form of control feels so good, so validating, that you willingly surrender your own desires without even realizing you are doing so, believing you are being cherished. Furthermore, manipulation often looks like love. It is the partner who says, "If you truly loved me, you wouldn't want to spend time with those friends," transforming a request for connection into a test of your devotion. Their jealousy is presented as a measure of their passion, and their possessiveness is disguised as a desire to protect what is precious to them. Because we all want to be loved deeply, we may accept these conditions. We may start to isolate ourselves, believing we are strengthening our most important bond, when in reality we are being cut off from our support systems, making us more dependent and easier to control. Finally, and perhaps most commonly, manipulation looks like advice. It is the mentor who consistently steers you away from your own innovative ideas, calling them too risky or unrealistic, all while guiding you toward projects that benefit their own agenda. They position themselves as the voice of reason and experience, making you doubt your own instincts and judgment. You begin to rely on their approval, seeking their counsel for every small step. Over time, your confidence erodes, and you start to believe that you are incapable of making good decisions without them. The advice that seemed so helpful has become a leash, and you have willingly placed it around your own neck. Guilt is, honestly, one of the most potent weapons in the manipulator's arsenal. It's kind of like a slow-acting poison that works from the inside out, making you your own jailer. The manipulator doesn't even need to lock the door, they just convince you that you don't deserve to leave. They do this by creating a sense of unpayable debt. They'll perform acts of kindness, offer support, or make sacrifices, but these aren't really gifts, they're investments, plain and simple. Each act comes with this unspoken expectation of repayment, and the manipulator will make sure to remind you of your debt anytime you try to assert your own needs or desires. You end up feeling eternally obligated. Let's take a family dynamic as an example. A mother might say to her adult child, "Go ahead, move to that new city. Don't worry about me being all alone here after everything I've done for you. I'll be fine." On the surface, those words seem to give permission, but wow. The underlying message is a powerful guilt trip. That statement is designed to make the child feel selfish and ungrateful, just for considering a life that doesn't revolve around the parent. Choosing their own path feels like betraying the person who sacrificed everything. The child is trapped, not by any physical force, but by the heavy weight of manufactured guilt, feeling responsible for the parent's happiness. This tactic pops up in friendships, too. Imagine a friend who's always there for you during your crises, offering a shoulder to cry on and hours of their time. It looks like true friendship, right? But then, when you start to succeed or find happiness elsewhere, this friend might subtly use their past support as leverage. If you can't drop everything to help them with a minor issue, they might say, "I'm surprised you're too busy for me, especially after I was there for you during your darkest times." They're not really asking for support, they're cashing in a debt. They're reminding you that your loyalty is owed, making you feel guilty for your own growth and independence. The whole point of guilt manipulation is to make saying no feel like a moral failure. It conditions you to prioritize the manipulator's feelings over your own well-being. Over time, you start policing your own behavior, always trying to anticipate what might make them feel disappointed or hurt. You end up making choices not based on what you actually want, but on what will prevent you from feeling that sting of guilt. You become a prisoner of your own conscience, which has been hijacked to serve the manipulator's needs. The debt is never fully paid, so you remain under their subtle, emotional control indefinitely. Gaslighting is, honestly, a profoundly insidious form of manipulation because it doesn't just try to influence your actions, it goes after your reality itself. It's like a psychological war that's waged on your perception, your memory, and even your sanity. The gaslighter's goal is to make you doubt what you know to be true, leaving you feeling confused, unstable, and, in the end, totally dependent on their version of events. They systematically chip away at your trust in your own mind, until you're not even sure what's real and what's imagined anymore. This isn't just a simple disagreement, it's a calculated campaign to overwrite your truth with their fiction. A classic example of gaslighting happens in romantic relationships. Suppose you confront your partner about something they said that really hurt you. Instead of acknowledging your feelings, they just deny it ever happened. They might say, "I never said that. You're being overly sensitive," or, "You have a terrible memory. You're always making things up." Sometimes they'll even twist the story so you become the aggressor. And if you keep pressing the issue, they might express concern for you, saying, "You seem really stressed lately, maybe you're not thinking clearly." They're not just disagreeing with you, they're actively invalidating your experience and even questioning your mental stability. This kind of tactic shows up in workplaces too. A boss might promise you a lead role on a project in a private meeting, but weeks later, when the project goes to someone else and you ask about it, the boss might flat out deny the promise was ever made. "We never had that conversation," they'll say with total confidence. "You must have misunderstood." They might even imply your ambition is making you hear things that weren't said. You leave the meeting not just disappointed, but honestly, questioning your own memory. Did you imagine the entire conversation? The gaslighter plants this seed of doubt, making you less likely to trust your own judgment down the road. Over time, the effects of gaslighting are just devastating. You start to constantly second-guess yourself. You apologize for things you didn't do. You feel this persistent sense of confusion and anxiety, like you're always walking on unsteady ground. You really start to believe that you are too sensitive, crazy, or unreliable. Once the gaslighter has convinced you that your own mind is an untrustworthy narrator, they've achieved total control. You become reliant on them to tell you what's real, what you should feel, and even who you are. Your reality isn't your own anymore. It's a world they've built for you. Fear is, honestly, a primal motivator, and manipulators are absolute experts at harnessing it to control your behavior. But this isn't usually the fear of physical harm. It's more of a subtle and pervasive anxiety. It's the fear of loss, the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, and the fear of abandonment. The manipulator carefully cultivates these fears, planting them in your mind like seeds, and then watering them with veiled threats, dire warnings, and worst-case scenarios. They create a world where their guidance feels like the only thing standing between you and disaster, making compliance feel like the only safe option. They don't need to shout. Just a whisper of what you could lose is often enough. In the workplace, for example, a manager might use fear to maintain control over the team. Instead of inspiring their employees, they might constantly talk about budget cuts, potential layoffs, and the intense competition both inside and outside the company. When assigning an undesirable task, they might say, "In this economic climate, we should all be grateful to have a job at all." The unspoken threat is pretty clear. Don't complain, don't push back, or you could be next. This creates an atmosphere of anxiety where employees are too afraid of losing their security to advocate for themselves or challenge poor management. They're controlled by the fear of unemployment. This tactic is deeply embedded in personal relationships too. A partner might control you with the fear of abandonment. Every disagreement or attempt to set a boundary is met with statements like, "I don't know if I can be in a relationship with someone who argues with me like this," or "My ex used to do that, and you know how that ended." These aren't genuine expressions of feeling. They're threats designed to trigger your fear of being alone. You quickly learn to avoid conflict at all costs. You silence your needs and suppress your feelings just to maintain the peace and keep the relationship intact, basically giving up your voice to avoid the terror of being left. The manipulator positions themselves as the only one who can save your job, preserve your relationship, or protect you from making a terrible mistake. This dynamic fosters a deep dependency. You start to see them as your savior, the only person who can help you navigate the dangerous world they've painted for you. You cling to them not out of love or respect, but out of fear of what might happen if you were to leave their side. Your world shrinks, your courage fades, and your choices become dictated by a constant low-grade anxiety orchestrated by the one person you believe is keeping you safe. Of all the tools of manipulation, the silent treatment is one of the most punishing and effective. It's, honestly, a passive-aggressive form of control that leverages one of our deepest human fears, the fear of being invisible, of being disconnected. When a manipulator uses the silent treatment, they're not simply taking space to cool down. They are in fact intentionally withdrawing all communication, affection, and acknowledgement to punish you for a perceived wrongdoing. What they're really doing is creating an emotional void, a cold and empty space designed to make you feel isolated, anxious, and desperate to regain their approval. It's a powerful demonstration that their presence is a reward that can be revoked at any moment. Imagine you have a disagreement with a partner or a close friend. Instead of talking through the issue, they simply shut down. They stop answering your texts, ignore your calls, and when you're in the same room, they look through you as if you don't exist. There's no explanation, no timeline, just a deafening silence. This absence of communication is incredibly distressing. You begin to replay the disagreement in your mind, wondering what you did that was so terrible. You feel a rising panic and an intense urge to fix the situation, to break the silence at any cost. The power of the silent treatment lies in its ability to make you cave. After days or even weeks of being ignored, the original issue seems less important than the pain of the disconnection. You become desperate to end the suffocating silence. More often than not, you are the one who breaks. You reach out. You apologize profusely, even if you still believe you were not in the wrong. You take full responsibility just to restore communication and feel connected again. The manipulator, having achieved their goal without saying a word, can then graciously forgive you, reinforcing their control and teaching you a powerful lesson. Do not cross them again. This tactic is a form of emotional blackmail. It communicates, your existence in my world is conditional upon your compliance. It teaches you to fear disagreement and to suppress any feelings or opinions that might lead to another bout of silence. The manipulator trains you to walk on eggshells, constantly monitoring their mood and adjusting your behavior to keep the peace. The silence is not empty. It is filled with unspoken judgment and the threat of emotional abandonment. It is a weapon that isolates you and forces you to surrender, leaving you feeling powerless and utterly alone. One of the first and most powerful warning signs that you are being manipulated is an overwhelming feeling of guilt whenever you try to say no. For most people, saying no is a normal part of daily interactions, a simple tool for managing time, energy, and personal limits. But in a manipulative dynamic, this simple word becomes impossibly heavy. When you contemplate turning down a request, no matter how unreasonable, you are flooded with a sense of dread. You feel as though you are committing a profound act of selfishness or betrayal. This feeling is not accidental. It has been carefully cultivated by the manipulator to ensure your compliance. They have conditioned you to believe that your primary role is to meet their needs. This guilt is a carefully engineered response. The manipulator has likely spent a significant amount of time establishing a narrative where they are needy, fragile, or have sacrificed so much for you. Therefore, when you decline a request, you are not just saying no to a task. You are rejecting them as a person. You are being ungrateful. You are being uncaring. They might not even have to say these things aloud. Their disappointed sigh, a subtle look of hurt, or a quiet, martyred, "It's fine, I'll figure something out," is enough to trigger the guilt they have programmed into you. Your own needs feel insignificant when weighed against the emotional fallout of their perceived disappointment. Consider the friend who always needs a favor. When they ask you to help them move on your only day off, you hesitate. Immediately your mind is filled with images of all the times they were there for you. You feel a wave of guilt, as if saying no would invalidate the entire friendship. Or think of the boss who asks you to work late again. As you start to form the word no, you feel a pang of anxiety, worried you will seem uncommitted or ungrateful for the job, especially after they've told you how much they depend on you. This is not a healthy negotiation of boundaries. It is an emotional hostage situation where your own well-being is the ransom. Ultimately, this constant feeling of guilt when setting boundaries is a clear indicator that the relationship is unbalanced. It is a sign that your right to self-determination is not respected. A healthy relationship, whether personal or professional, allows for mutual respect and the freedom to say no without fear of punishment or emotional retribution. When the word no feels like a declaration of war, it is because the manipulator has created a battleground where your autonomy is the enemy. The guilt is the weapon they have handed you to use against yourself, ensuring you surrender before the fight even begins. It's a red flag waving in the landscape of your own emotions. Another telltale sign of manipulation is the constant feeling that you have to explain and justify your decisions, feelings, and actions. In a healthy relationship, you can state a preference or make a choice, and it is largely accepted at face value. But when you are being manipulated, your every move is put on trial. The manipulator acts as the prosecutor, judge, and jury, cross-examining your motives and forcing you to build a case for your own autonomy. You find yourself launching into lengthy, detailed explanations for simple things, like why you are tired, why you chose a certain restaurant, or why you want to spend an evening alone. This need to defend yourself is exhausting and deeply invalidating. This dynamic is a subtle form of control. By constantly questioning you, the manipulator positions themselves as the ultimate authority on what is logical, reasonable, or acceptable. Your own reasoning is treated as inherently flawed or insufficient until it passes their scrutiny. For example, if you say you don't want to go to a party, they won't just accept it. They will ask, "Why not? You seemed fine earlier. Are you mad at me? Is it because my friends will be there?" The questions are not born of genuine curiosity. They are designed to pick apart your decision until you either give in or feel completely depleted from the effort of defending your simple desire for a quiet night. Over time, this pattern becomes internalized. You start to anticipate the interrogation and preemptively build your defense before you even state your preference. You rehearse your reasons, gather your evidence, and prepare your closing arguments, all for the simple act of saying you'd rather watch a movie at home. This constant need to justify your existence erodes your trust in your own judgment. You begin to believe that your feelings and decisions are not valid unless they can be logically proven to another person's satisfaction. You lose the ability to simply say, "because I want to," or "because that's how I feel." This cycle is incredibly damaging to your sense of self. You are being taught that you do not have the right to your own inner world without providing an external, approved-of explanation. It implies that you are not trustworthy, even to yourself. You are living in a constant state of defense, as if your very identity is on trial. If you find yourself perpetually on the witness stand in your own life, forced to justify your every choice to someone who is supposed to care about you, it is a glaring warning sign. You are not in a partnership, you are in a cross-examination, and you are being manipulated into doubting your own right to exist as you are. Living in a state of constant caution, as if you are walking on eggshells, is one of the most stressful and revealing signs of manipulation. This feeling is a pervasive anxiety that dictates your every word and action. You are constantly monitoring the other person's mood, trying to anticipate what might set them off. The so-called peace in the relationship feels incredibly fragile, like a thin sheet of ice that could crack at any moment. You find yourself carefully editing your thoughts before you speak, choosing the safest, most neutral topics of conversation, and avoiding anything that could possibly lead to conflict or disapproval. Your own home or workplace, which should be a place of safety, starts to feel like a minefield. This environment is created by a manipulator who uses unpredictable moods, emotional outbursts, or the silent treatment as tools of control. Because their negative reactions are so powerful and punishing, you learn to do everything in your power to avoid triggering them. You might have good news to share, like a personal achievement, but you hesitate, wondering if it will make them feel insecure or resentful. You might have a concern to raise, but you swallow it, fearing it will provoke an argument or days of cold silence. Your emotional landscape becomes secondary to theirs. Your primary goal is simply to keep them calm and content. This constant self-monitoring is incredibly draining. It consumes a tremendous amount of mental and emotional energy to be on high alert all the time. You lose your spontaneity and your sense of fun. Joy becomes risky. Honesty feels dangerous. You may find yourself feeling tense and anxious even when things are seemingly calm, because you know how quickly the atmosphere can change. You start to feel like you are losing your own personality, becoming a watered-down, cautious version of yourself. This is the goal of the manipulator, to make you so focused on managing their emotions that you have no energy left to focus on your own needs or desires. If you recognize this feeling of walking on eggshells, it is a critical warning sign that the relationship is emotionally unsafe. Healthy connections are built on a foundation of trust and open communication, where both individuals feel free to express themselves without fear of punishment. In a manipulative dynamic, however, the connection is built on fear. The manipulator has established a system where their emotional comfort is your responsibility. The constant tension you feel is the sound of your own freedom being suppressed. It is the silent alarm telling you that you are being controlled by the threat of emotional instability. Perhaps the most insidious warning sign of manipulation is the slow, almost imperceptible erosion of your self-confidence. This is not something that happens overnight. It is a gradual fading, like a photograph left in the sun for too long. You used to be decisive, but now you second-guess every choice. You used to feel competent and intelligent, but now you constantly feel like you are not good enough. You used to trust your own instincts, but now you look to the manipulator for validation and approval for almost everything. This loss of confidence is the ultimate goal of many manipulators, as a person who doubts themselves is far easier to control. This erosion is achieved through a steady drip of subtle criticisms, backhanded compliments, and constant questioning of your abilities. The manipulator might say things like, "That was a good effort for you," which sounds like praise but carries an undercurrent of condescension. They might helpfully point out your flaws under the guise of wanting you to improve. When you make a decision, they might immediately question it, creating doubt where there was none. "Are you sure that's the right way to do it?" they'll ask, positioning themselves as the expert and you as the novice, even in areas where you are perfectly capable. Over time, you begin to internalize this narrative. You start to believe that you are indeed clumsy, forgetful, or not very smart. You lose touch with your own strengths and accomplishments because they have been consistently downplayed or ignored. The manipulator becomes the mirror in which you see yourself, but it is a distorted, funhouse mirror that only reflects your perceived weaknesses. You become dependent on them, not just for their approval, but for their assessment of reality. You start to think, "I can't do this without them," which is exactly what they want you to believe. If you look back and realize you feel less like yourself than you used to, less vibrant, less confident, less sure, it is a profound warning sign. Manipulation doesn't just steal your time or your energy, it steals your very sense of self. It hollows you out from the inside until you become a shell of the person you once were. This quiet fading is the manipulator's greatest victory. Recognizing this loss of confidence is the first step toward reclaiming your identity. It is the moment you realize that the reflection you see is not your own, and you can begin the journey of finding yourself again. You do not fight manipulation with anger. You do not fight it with revenge. Anger is a fire that will consume you, and revenge is a game the manipulator is better at playing. You fight manipulation with something far more powerful, something they cannot control. You fight it with awareness, and the first step to building that awareness is learning to create space. The manipulator thrives on your immediate emotional reactions, your guilt, your fear, your desire to please. These are the levers they pull. Your power comes from taking your hand off those levers. You must learn to pause. The pause is your first and most critical line of defense. When a manipulator makes a request, asks a loaded question, or delivers a backhanded compliment, your instinct may be to react instantly. You feel the pressure to respond, to explain, to agree, to fix the situation. This immediacy is their strategic advantage. They count on your conditioned response. The pause breaks this cycle. It is a moment you claim for yourself, a silent rebellion against their urgency. It is a deep breath that allows you to step back from the emotional chessboard and see the game for what it is. It gives you time to think. So how do you practice the pause? It is simple in theory, but it requires conscious effort. When you feel that familiar knot of anxiety or guilt rising in your chest, that is your cue. Instead of speaking, you breathe. You can say, "Let me think about that," or "I'll get back to you on that." These simple phrases are powerful tools. They buy you time. They signal that you will not be rushed into a decision that serves them but harms you. This small act of defiance shifts the power dynamic. You are no longer a reactive puppet. You are a thoughtful individual considering your options. In that pause, you can ask yourself a few crucial questions. What am I really being asked to do? How do I feel about this? What do I truly want? What will happen if I say no? This internal dialogue is the beginning of reconnecting with your own inner voice, the one the manipulator has tried so hard to silence. The pause is not just about delaying your answer. It is about finding your answer. It is the sacred space where you remember that your needs matter. It is where you transform from a reactor into an actor, consciously choosing your next move. It is your first step toward freedom. After you have mastered the pause, the next tool in your arsenal is the neutral response. Manipulators thrive on drama. They bait you with emotionally charged statements, accusations, or guilt-inducing pleas, hoping to hook you into a chaotic emotional exchange. When you take the bait, by getting angry, defensive, or overly apologetic, you are playing their game by their rules. A neutral response is your way of refusing to play. It is a calm, factual, and non-emotional reply that offers the manipulator nothing to latch onto. It is like a smooth wall that their barbs cannot penetrate. It starves the fire of the oxygen it needs. A neutral response is often short and to the point. It avoids jade, justifying, arguing, defending, or explaining. For example, if a manipulator says, "I can't believe you'd go out with your friends tonight when you know I've had such a hard week," your instinct might be to defend yourself, maybe saying, "I've had a hard week too," or apologize profusely. A neutral response would be something like, "I understand you've had a hard week. My plans are set for tonight." Or simply, "I hear you." You acknowledge their words without accepting the guilt they're trying to place on you. You are not cold. You are simply refusing to engage in the intended drama. Let's consider another scenario. A boss who wants you to take on yet another project might say, "I guess I'll have to find someone more dedicated to the team to handle this." This is a clear attempt to guilt you into compliance. A defensive reaction would be to list all the times you've been dedicated. A neutral response is far more powerful. You could say, "My current workload is at capacity." This is a statement of fact, not an apology or an argument. It doesn't engage with the emotional accusation of not being dedicated. It simply presents a boundary in a calm, professional manner, leaving the manipulator with nowhere to go. Using neutral answers feels unnatural at first, especially if you have been conditioned to be a people pleaser. It can feel cold or uncaring. but it is a vital act of self-preservation. You are not responsible for managing another person's manufactured emotional crises. Your responsibility is to protect your own peace. The neutral response is not a weapon to hurt the other person. It is a shield to protect yourself. It communicates that while you hear them, you will not be drawn into their emotional storm. It teaches them over time that the buttons they use to push no longer work. A boundary is not a wall to keep people out. It is a line that defines where you end and someone else begins. It is a declaration of what you will and will not accept. For someone who has been manipulated, the very idea of setting a boundary can be terrifying. It feels like an act of aggression because the manipulator has trained you to believe that any assertion of your own needs is an attack on theirs. But the most powerful boundaries are not set with anger. They are set with calm, quiet firmness. And most importantly, they are set without an apology. You do not need to be sorry for taking care of yourself. When you set a boundary, the manipulator will often demand an explanation. They do this because your reasons give them ammunition. They can pick apart your logic, argue with your feelings, and find ways to make your reasons seem invalid. This is why one of the most empowering techniques is to set boundaries without lengthy explanations. You do not owe anyone a detailed report on why you need to protect your time, energy, or mental health. A simple, clear statement is enough. "I am not able to help with that," is a complete sentence. "I won't be discussing this further" is a valid conclusion to a conversation. Think about a parent who constantly offers unsolicited advice about your life choices. You might say, "I appreciate your concern, but I am not looking for advice on this topic." When they push for a reason, you do not need to justify your stance. You can simply repeat your boundary. "As I said, I'm not discussing this. This is not rude, it is clear." You are teaching them how you will be treated. You're reclaiming your right to make your own decisions without needing to have them validated or approved by anyone else. You're ending the debate they are trying to start. Setting boundaries without apology is a skill that requires practice. Your voice might shake the first time you do it. You might feel a surge of guilt afterward. That is the old conditioning trying to pull you back in. Stand firm. Remind yourself that you have a right to your own space, your own time, and your own decisions. A person who truly respects you will, eventually, respect your boundaries. A manipulator will be enraged by them. Their reaction will tell you everything you need to know about their true intentions. Your boundary is not just a line, it is a test, and it is one you must not fail. Words are cheap. For a manipulator, they are the cheapest currency of all. They can weave beautiful tapestries of promises, apologies, and declarations of love. They are masters of saying exactly what you want to hear, especially when they sense they are losing control. They will promise to change. They will swear they understand. They will apologize with such seeming sincerity that it breaks your heart. This is a trap. One of the most crucial ways to protect yourself is to stop listening to their words and start observing their actions. Actions are the only evidence you can trust. Their patterns of behavior are the only truth. A manipulator's words and actions are often in direct conflict. They might apologize for hurting your feelings, and then do the exact same thing a week later. They might promise to respect your boundaries, and then immediately test them with a small request. They might tell you how much they value your opinion, and then consistently ignore or dismiss it. This gap between their words and their deeds is where the truth lives. It is the bright flashing sign that you must not ignore. You must train yourself to focus on this gap, to see the pattern, not the performance. To put this into practice, start keeping a mental or even a written log. When they apologize, make a note of it, then watch. Did their behavior actually change? When they make a promise, observe. Was the promise kept, or was it forgotten as soon as you were pacified? This is not about building a case against them to use in an argument. It is about building a case for yourself, to strengthen your own resolve. It provides you with undeniable proof that the problem is not your perception. The problem is their consistent pattern of behavior. This evidence will be your anchor when your emotions threaten to pull you back into the fog of their words. Trusting actions over words is liberating. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of hope and disappointment. You no longer need to analyze their tone or decipher their hidden meanings. The data is clear. Their actions will tell you if they are capable of change, if they respect you, and if they are safe to have in your life. Words can be used to build a fantasy, a beautiful illusion of what a relationship could be. But actions build reality. When you learn to observe their actions with clear eyes, you step out of their story and back into the real world. And in the real world, you can finally make decisions based on truth, not on hope. And so, that same man, the one who had been a stranger to himself, began a quiet revolution. He did not declare war on his manipulators. He did not confront them with lists of their wrongdoings or demand apologies for the years of unseen control. He understood that such battles would only entangle him further in their games of drama and denial. Instead, he turned his focus inward. He started with the pause. When his boss asked him to take on yet another task outside of his duties, he didn't immediately agree with a forced smile. He took a breath and said, "I will need to check my current priorities and let you know." The space created by those few words felt vast and powerful, a territory that was entirely his own. He learned to see clearly. The world, which had been a confusing fog of others' emotions and expectations, slowly came into focus. He started to recognize the bait when it was offered. When his partner sighed and said, "I guess I'll just be alone again tonight," he no longer felt the familiar pang of guilt that once would have sent him rushing to cancel his plans. He heard the words for what they were, an attempt to pull a string. He responded with a neutral, "I'll be back around 10, acknowledging her feeling without accepting responsibility for it. He was not being cruel, he was being honest. He was untangling himself, one delicate thread at a time, refusing to participate in the old dance. He stopped explaining himself. When his friends questioned his decision to take up painting again, calling it impractical, he didn't launch into a defensive monologue about the importance of passion and self-expression. He simply smiled and said, "It's something I want to do for myself." He offered no justification because he knew none was needed. His desires were not on trial. This simple act of refusing to defend his own joy was profoundly liberating. It was a silent declaration that he was the sole authority on his own life, the only judge whose verdict mattered. He was reclaiming the territory of his own mind, piece by piece. He stopped chasing approval. For years his actions had been guided by a desperate need for validation from others. He had contorted himself into whatever shape was required to earn a nod of acceptance or a word of praise. Now he found a new source of validation, one that came from within. He learned to trust his own instincts, to honor his own needs, and to celebrate his own small victories without an audience. The applause he had once craved from the outside world was replaced by a quiet, steady sense of self-respect. He was no longer a performer seeking a standing ovation. He was simply a man living his life, authentically, and for himself. And then, a strange and magical thing began to happen. The moment he truly stopped playing the game, the other players started to disappear. His manipulators, who had once seemed like permanent fixtures in his life, began to fade away. Their power had always been dependent on his reaction, on his participation. They needed his guilt, his fear, and his constant striving for their approval. When he stopped providing them with the emotional fuel they required, their interest in him waned. A puppet master has no use for a puppet that will no longer dance. Their control was an illusion that only worked as long as he believed in it. His boss, finding that the guilt trips and subtle threats no longer resulted in extra, unpaid work, began to direct those tactics elsewhere. The requests for favors dwindled, replaced by a more professional if distant relationship. The manipulator, at his core, is pragmatic. He will not waste energy on a target that no longer provides a return on investment. The man's calm, firm boundaries made him a poor subject for control, and so he was simply left alone to do his job. He had not been fired or punished as he had once feared. He had simply become uninteresting to the person who sought to exploit him. His partner, faced with a man who would no longer surrender his friendships or his autonomy to soothe her insecurities, grew frustrated. The emotional lever she had always pulled now moved nothing. Her dramatic sighs and veiled threats of leaving were met not with panicked apologies, but with a calm willingness to discuss the relationship's health honestly. She wanted a follower, not a partner. When she realized he would no longer follow, she was the one who left, seeking someone else whose strings were easier to pull. The loss was painful, but it was the pain of surgery, the necessary cutting away of a sickness to allow for healing. He stood in his new, quieter life and realized the most profound truth of all. He had not needed to build walls. He had not needed to become cold or cruel. He had simply needed to become himself. By reclaiming his own thoughts, his own needs, and his own decisions, he had become untouchable. The manipulators didn't disappear because he had banished them. They disappeared because the role they needed him to play no longer existed. The stage for their drama was empty. And in that quiet, empty space, the man was finally, truly free to begin living a story that was all his own. The journey out of manipulation is not a journey into isolation. It is a journey into wisdom. You do not need to become cold to protect yourself from the influence of others. You do not need to become cruel or suspicious of every person you meet. The goal is not to build impenetrable walls around your heart, shutting out the world and the potential for genuine connection. The goal is to become untouchable. This does not mean you are unfeeling or unreachable. It means your core, your sense of self, your right to your own reality, is no longer up for negotiation. It means you are grounded in your own truth. Becoming untouchable means you learn to differentiate between genuine care and disguised control. You can still be kind, compassionate, and generous. You can still love deeply and trust openly. But you do so from a place of strength, not from a place of need. You learn that true care respects your boundaries. True love does not demand your submission. True advice empowers you rather than making you dependent. Your newfound awareness acts as a filter, allowing the good to come in while keeping the toxic out. You no longer mistake poison for medicine, simply because it is offered with a sweet taste. You stop seeing relationships as a transaction where you must earn your worth. You understand that your value is inherent. You do not need to apologize for your needs, justify your feelings, or shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You can be open and vulnerable with people who have earned your trust, people whose actions have consistently shown that they respect your autonomy. You become a fortress, not with high walls and locked gates, but with a deep, unshakable foundation. Your strength does not come from pushing others away, but from being so rooted in yourself that no one can push you over. This transformation is quiet. It is internal. It is the steady flame of self-respect that you learn to tend to. You realize that you don't need to fight every battle you are invited to. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to prove your point. You can simply choose not to engage. You can choose peace. You can choose yourself. To be untouchable is to be sovereign over your own inner world. It is the ultimate freedom, a state of being where you are no longer a pawn in anyone else's game. You are simply and powerfully you. The world is full of games, and manipulation is one of the oldest. It is played in boardrooms, in bedrooms, and at dinner tables. It is played by people who may not even be conscious of what they are doing, driven by their own insecurities and needs. For most of your life, you may have been playing this game without even knowing it. You were a player who did not understand the rules, and so you were always at a disadvantage. You lost pieces of your confidence, your time, and your identity, without ever understanding how. But that time is over now. Your eyes are open. If this journey, this story, has opened your eyes, then you have already taken the most important step. You have been given the rulebook. You now know how the game is played. You know the tactics, you recognize the warning signs, and you have the tools to protect yourself. You understand that the manipulator's power is an illusion that relies entirely on your participation. It relies on your belief in the reality they construct for you. But once you see behind the curtain, you can never unsee it. The magic trick is exposed forever. You can no longer be fooled by the smoke and mirrors. This knowledge is your permanent advantage. It does not mean you will never encounter a manipulator again. They are out there, but they will no longer have power over you. You will see their moves coming from a mile away. The guilt trips, the gaslighting, the veiled threats, they will be as transparent to you as glass. You will not be drawn into their drama. You will not be ensnared by their false apologies. You will simply observe their strategy, recognize it for what it is, and choose not to play. You will walk away from the game board, because once you see the game, you never lose again. You do not lose because you have found a way to win. You never lose because you are no longer playing. Your victory is not in defeating them. Your victory is in reclaiming yourself. It is in the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are in control of your own life, your own choices, and your own happiness. So, hold on to this awareness. Nurture it. Let it be the compass that guides you forward. The game will continue around you, but it is no longer your concern. You are free.